casual smoking cigarettes on rooftops in fishnets in the morning with the moon still glowing. And here comes Jesus in an Astro van rolling down the strip again. He's stoned while Jerry plays. He said life ain't ever what it seems. These dreams are more than paper things. And it's alright mama, you're afraid I'll be poor along the way, but I don't wanna see those tears again. You know Jesus drives an Astro van.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I forget which episode this is, but in this episode, I'm going to talk about my recent trip to New York and Pennsylvania, and I just really kind of want to analyze just a few things that I learned and picked up on while I was over there. And it's crazy because I come from Florida, and I've never really been outside Florida that much. I've been to Washington, D.C., but that's probably the furthest north I've ever been, and I've never really gone west at all. So I've lived in kind of in one spot my whole life. I haven't really moved around that much, and I always I moved to North Carolina for a little bit when I was in middle school, and it was an interesting experience, and I'm glad that I had it. But, it's still the South. It's still the Southeast. So it wasn't incredibly different, but going to New York and going to New York City for the first time, it really showed me just how much we are all how much we are so much just the people around us. We are like this in New York City, there's this collective sense of urgency and expediency and stress, and I gotta get here, I gotta go there, and fuck this dude, he's in my way. You got that kind of mindset in you, within you, but it's, you could say it's within you, but it's also within everybody else, because everybody else is in that same sort of state. And so if everybody else is in that same sort of state, I think, just logically speaking, it has to be some sort of phenomenon where you're feeding on each other, you're feeding on each other's energy in some way. And I really think that's probably true in different ways for different cultures. I think it amazed me, because I think it's like a fish in a fishbowl. If you never go outside the fishbowl, you don't think there's ever anything else. And when you go to a place like New York, you realize, okay, these people are in a state of mind, and these people are in a state of mind for 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours a day that I am not in while I'm in my location. It really wakes you up to the fact that your state of mind is so much more dependent on your location than I think a lot of people realize. It's because I think everybody wants to believe, I'm an individual, I'm a free spirit, as long as I have my mind, I can control, what goes in and what goes out. But that's not true. I've realized that it's two parts. You have the individual, you have yourself that you kind of gotta manage, and that's something that's very unique to you, and it's that variable quality about you that makes you an individual human being. And then there's another part of you but there's another aspect of you that is very much influenced by the collective, by the society, by people around you, and that's something it's always. Your individual self is always in some sort of balancing act with the collective mindset of what's going on around you. And I don't know, because I went to New York City and I also went to Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania was very interesting because it was so different. There was just this incredible amount of contrast between the two. Pennsylvania, I went to rural Pennsylvania. I didn't really go into any cities in Pennsylvania, but went to this lake, and there's just beautiful mountains, curvy roads, and it was very nice. A lot of creeks, it's a lot different than Florida. In Florida, it's all swampy, but it was very interesting. And I remember it was so quiet. It was so quiet compared to New York. And personally, I definitely prefer the quiet. I definitely prefer the quiet aspect of it, because I think that when you are in a state like New York, or in a city like New York, I mean, I think you're you don't really know yourself that much, because you really do kind of just, because there's so many people, there's so much information, there's so much to take in all at once. You're just constantly trying to process all this stuff. And in the act of processing it, like you're not listening to yourself. And I know that sounds so typical millennial and new agey and stupid, but you can't hear your own thoughts. You just can't hear yourself think. It's frustrating in that way almost, but you get used to it, I imagine. But in Pennsylvania, I saw a lot of people who they were living on farms, and they were pretty self-sustained. They had chickens, ducks, cows, and it was all just a very self-sustained lifestyle. It was very interesting. I mean, it's not incredibly self-sustaining, but because, you have to have that, you have to go into the city for things. But a lot of them, I bet, hunted, and it was very eye-opening, because you go from one place where, every corner there's a hot dog stand or some sort of, little cheap store you can go into, like, and just get something at a snap, right away. If you want something, boom, it's there. You don't have to wait when you're in New York City. You just have to walk a little bit. But out there in rural Pennsylvania, where people are living on these farms or just out in the woods or whatnot, you can hunt. I mean, I'm sure people in New York can hunt too, but like, you can hunt and you could store up. That's, if you kill a deer, hundreds of pounds of meat. You have chickens, you have cows, you have a lot of things that you really need for just survival. That's just right there for you to sort of maintain. It just requires your time, and that's something that I think it's the trade-off between the two. Is like, in one area you're self-sustained and you don't have to go out and buy things, but it requires your time, it requires your attention, and it requires you to kind of craft this balance. A farm is very much a balancing act, it seems, because you don't want to, and also depending on the weather, you don't want to overstep things, you don't want to overdo things, you want things to just kind of be right, and like right on an even level. And in a place like New York City, it's, you trade that time that you would spend trying to cultivate things and trying to build things that way, and instead you use money. You use money to trade for the time. And I know this because of business and stuff like that. It's all, a lot of times it's way better to trade money for time. Like, they say money can't buy you everything, and it can't, but money can buy you time. And that's a really valuable thing. And that's why I don't think it's smart to just dismiss striving after money, because striving after money, I think, is a very important aspect of life. It's a very important part of trying to get ahead and trying to just have resources in order to live the life that you want. If you aren't doing that, if you don't have the resources to live the life that you want, then you don't really, and maybe the life that you want doesn't require a lot of money, and I think that most people probably don't need that much money to live a very meaningful and fulfilling life. We have, when you're on social media, you're just, and I'm guilty of it too, you're just people with these, Lamborghinis and mansions and whatnot. They're just thrown in front of you, and it kind of keeps you on this track that you just want to keep running, and you're just a hamster on a wheel. You're just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. You're like, I gotta get ahead, but you don't. Like, you can. I think, I'm a fucking teenager. I'm 19 years old. I'm only saying things that I believe to be the case, because I'm not old enough or wise enough to have the capability to say, this is the case, this is what's true, this is what's not true. But from what it seems to me, I've had moments, very glimpses or even longer stretches of time where I felt like, man, this is amazing. This is all I need. I could live like this forever and be reasonably happy. Even when I was a server in a restaurant, there were moments when I had my sleep right, which was, I'm starting to learn, is the foundation of everything. I had my meditations right. I had my exercise right. I had my social needs met. And with all those things met, that's all I was in bliss. You know, I was in utter bliss. And even though I was in a job that wasn't the best for me, I was still in a state of bliss. And that might have just been a temporary thing. You know, happiness comes and goes. We're always just striving to keep it, you know, to maintain it, but you know, it comes and goes. But I've learned just how much of that is dependent on just a few basic concepts and ideas that just, I'm talking about happiness. And I don't think happiness is what everybody's striving for, because I think Jordan Peterson, listening to some of his lectures, really opened my eyes to this. That you shouldn't strive just to be in a state of just pure bliss and dopamine all the time, because that's not everything. It's great. It's amazing. Hold on to that if you have it. But from what he says and what from I've experienced, like some of the best moments are just when you have this. I have this picture that I have right up in front of my desk of Jimi Hendrix, and he's looking down at his guitar as he's playing it, and he just has this childlike smile on his face. And every time I look at that picture, I think childlike creativity. Those are the two words I always think of, because that's kind of the state of being that I think is one of the best to strive for. I don't think it's the only one, but I remember just moments practicing guitar and just feeling like a child, feeling like a kid, and it's awesome. Doing jiu-jitsu, just rolling around, just trying this out, try this, and it awakens your curiosity to try things and get better at things. My only thing is I want to get better at so many things. I think that I don't. I have to get better at picking one thing, but all right, I'm going to dedicate myself to this thing and this thing and this thing and nothing else, you know? So, but it's hard because I want to do everything. And I think that that's something that I really got to manage. I want to do a podcast. I want to do YouTube. I want to own these businesses and that business. And I want to learn this and learn that. And I think that the best thing to do probably is just to say, you know what? Like, I have a long life ahead of me. Dedicate a few years to this, dedicate a few years to that, and then see where we are. But I don't know. I think I found for me that it's very important to try to get good at things. When I'm trying to get good at things, everything else seems to fall in place. When I'm trying to get good at certain business things, then if I fuck up with, you know, if I slack off trying to do a podcast or something, you know, creative, or trying to do archery or something, then, you know, it makes up for it. If I slack off with a business, but then I practiced guitar for 20 minutes, or I did, you know, a couple jiu-jitsu classes, then that sort of makes up for it. So I find that I find for me that I can't just dedicate myself to one thing because I'll get bored, but having multiple things to do, probably just narrow it down, is very important. I'm making sweet potatoes right now, and I left them in the oven. They're probably done now, so I'm going to pause this and be right back.
When I see those angels on the roof, I'll know I've made it. When my doobie smoking Jesus puts my name upon his guest list, says, son, you're famous in heaven. Maybe you're famous in heaven.